Well, as everyone in South Africa must know by now, Public Protector Thuli Madonsela released her final report on President Jacob Zuma's Nkandla residence. And our reporter Christine Nkandla was at the briefing in Pretoria. She's joining us this morning, and Anthony Norton, the founder and director of Nortons, is also with us here in the studio. Christine, let's start with you. And you were at the press conference. It must have been quite a big event. But one of the points that was made was that the procedure that she used in releasing the result didn't go as normal. What was that about?
Yeah, you're quite right, David. This is the first time the Public Protector has not revealed who assisted her in the investigation. So the investigating officials were not revealed. She didn't indicate who they were. This is partly because of the animosity that has been directed towards her office by members of the public, she said, not necessarily the people being investigated. She went as far as saying this is standard procedure. All ombudsman officers actually indicate who was behind the investigation, but in this case, not. She even told us that they didn't want to be a part of the panel yesterday. They were uncomfortable with the idea.
Anthony, what do you make of that, especially in light of the fact that we haven't seen any voices from the government coming out in protection of the Office of the Public Protector, taking Thuli Madonsela aside from the bullying and the harassment that she's received?
Except, I think, for Trevor Manuel, who did say these officers should not be attacked.
Correct. I think Trevor Manuel has come out in support of the Public Protector, but obviously this was a very controversial investigation, and she has obviously fingered a number of government officials as a result of maladministration in this process. And I think a lot of them were seeking to protect their own turf and protect their own reputations, and hence it's been a very controversial report. And I think that's probably why a lot of people associated with the report wanted to maintain the secrecy of their identities.
The old Chinese saying, victory has 1,000 fathers, defeat is an orphan. I mean, this is an orphan.
Correct.
They're running for cover. But Christine, when you were there, you actually interviewed the Public Protector yourself. What did you ask her?
Yeah, well, David, one of the recommendations that she makes is that the President, together with National Treasury and the South African Police Service, should sit down and look at the costs that were spent on Nkandla that don't necessarily constitute as security upgrades, and that the President should then pay back a reasonable percentage of that amount. I asked her what reasonable means.
Yeah.
I have requested that the President pays a reasonable portion of the cost. The standard of reasonableness will be determined on the basis of two things. One would be what is reasonable given the fact that he's being asked now to pay when he wasn't asked at the start of the process. Affordability, so that would be reasonableness. But also reasonableness would also look at what those items are. From my own determination, I've isolated the items that I believe had nothing to do with security, being the visitor center, the cake hall, the swimming pool, the amphitheater, and the relocation of neighbors. But I will not ask him to pay for the relocation of neighbors because they're not his family.
Anthony, if we look at this recommendation that he needs to pay back a reasonable portion of the amounts, is there a law that actually supports the Public Protector, or she's setting a new precedent here? Is there a law that she can use to back her up?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, both the Constitution, the public procurement legislation, the national supply chain management policies all dictate that you can only expend public money on objective public works. You can't go and spend public money on private residences and things that benefit private individuals. So I think she's absolutely correct in this, that any expenditure which basically benefited the President and his family personally needs to be paid back to the state.
Christine, what else did you ask her?
Yeah, well, she also investigated whether or not money was transferred from other Department of Public Works projects to fund Nkandla. I asked her what her investigation found in that regard.
I found that it was true indeed that there was no proper budgeting for Nkandla, and therefore funds had to be taken from projects that were meant for service delivery. One of them was a CT regeneration project. Money was taken from a dolomite risk project and an inner city regeneration project, and given to the items that had not been budgeted for in the Nkandla project.
Anthony, what can we expect from a legal and a constitutional perspective now in terms of the next steps that are likely to unfold or should unfold, provided, of course, that they are not hindered in any way?
Well, I mean, she set out a number of recommendations that government should follow, and she's asked that the President report back to Parliament within 14 days. You know, look, I'll be surprised if any concrete, decisive steps are taken by government. I mean, I think their conduct to date has been to try and cover up this behaviour. They haven't demonstrated a great deal of transparency in interacting with the public protector on this issue. And I think unless there is a great deal of public pressure which is brought to bear on government, I expect inaction from them.
Anthony, in a way, none of this is a surprise because it's been in the media, most of it has been out there. I don't think there's actually anything really new in this report that we haven't seen before, but it's packaged. Her recommendations are strong, so that's new in the sense that now she's set out. But what's really interesting now is what the government do, and in a bigger picture sense, does government respect the public protector? Because in the end, what can she do if they don't listen to her?
Absolutely, and I think this is really going to bring into focus clearly whether government acts with accountability now, because they can no longer hide behind this excuse that no one knew and the facts aren't out there. The facts have been very clearly set out. Government ministers who haven't acted in terms of the Constitution and in terms of their responsibilities have been clearly identified. So government now needs to act decisively. The facts are out there.
But can government now go to court to say we don't agree and we want the court to overturn the Public Protector's report?
I think they would have grave difficulties in doing that in light of the findings that are set out in her report.
Does she have any recourse, though, to take the President or any of the other ministers that are implicated to court if she feels that some of her recommendations are not actually being implemented?
Look, she personally may have some difficulties because, you know, she's now effectively fulfilled her responsibilities and published her report. But I think various other civic bodies and members of the public could hold government accountable.
Anthony, I suppose let's take it at an even bigger picture. Could we be seeing a constitutional crisis here, where we have these Chapter 9 institutions? The Auditor General is another one. They are appointed for 7 years, the individuals. They may only be appointed once. They're protected. They can't be removed. So there is protection for them. But if they don't do what she says, does that constitute a crisis?
Well, look, I mean, the DA has called for the impeachment of the President. I think we all know that that's unlikely to succeed. But I think certainly the various government departments, particularly Public Works, the Minister of Police, etc., could be held accountable in terms of her report. And I think the courts could enforce the recommendations that the Public Protector has set out in her report.